Will Earth survive the collapse? Scientists reveal universe death date. The clock is ticking for Earth as universe faces a big crunch in billions of years. Physicists from Cornell University and Shanghai Jiao Tong University have unveiled a startling new theory about the ultimate fate of the universe, a cosmic death day that marks when the universe will stop expanding and begin to shrink, eventually collapsing back into a singular point in a dramatic event called the Big Crunch. Okay, now it's time to dig into this one. Let's break it down on the AI podcast.
Welcome, deep divers. Today we are tackling, well, maybe the biggest question there is, the ultimate end. Not just for our planet, Earth, but for the whole universe. And for this deep dive, we've got two really different predictions about how it all might wrap up.
Very different indeed. One is coming straight from, cutting edge science, the latest data.
Right. And the other, it's a historical prophecy from someone you probably don't associate with doomsday predictions.
Definitely not.
So our mission today is to sort of unpack these timelines, look at the evidence, or maybe the interpretations behind them, and see if there are any surprising connections, between these views that are centuries apart.
Yeah, how do they relate, if at all?
We'll be navigating some pretty complex ideas about our ultimate future. We're drawing on a new study just out from Cornell and Shanghai Jiao Tong universities.
And also, fascinatingly, historical notes from Sir Isaac Newton himself.
Exactly. Okay, so let's dive right in with the science first. The most recent thinking about the universe's long-term future, and that takes us to this idea called the Big Crunch. Sounds dramatic.
It does, doesn't it? And what's really interesting now is how this new data is, well, maybe shifting things. The Big Crunch, it's this proposed future where the universe stops expanding.
Which was the dominant theory for a while, right?
Yeah.
Eternal expansion.
It was, yeah. But the Big Crunch suggests it starts to contract. Instead, everything collapses back down into a single super dense point, a singularity.
The Big Bang, but running backwards.
Exactly. Kind of like hitting rewind on the whole universe.
And you mentioned new data. This isn't just an old theory being dusted off.
No, not at all. This is tied to a pretty major new study. Physicists at Cornell and Shanghai Jiao Tong University, they've been using data from these huge astronomical surveys. You might have heard of them. The Dark Energy Survey, DES.
Oh, yeah, DES. And isn't there another one, DSI?
That's the one, the Dark Energy Spectroscopic Instrument. Massive projects.
So what did DS and DII actually measure that changed the picture from endless expansion to recoil? What are they looking at?
Great question. They're essentially mapping millions, even billions of galaxies, measuring how they move, how fast the universe is expanding. And this new analysis, it suggests that maybe the expansion isn't accelerating like we thought, or at least it won't forever. It might have already peaked, actually. We could be in the very, very early stages of a slowdown.
Wow. Okay, so what's the timeline they're proposing?
It's staggering. They suggest the universe might start to actually contract in, get this, just 7 billion years.
Just 7 billion. Okay, just feels relative here, but cosmically speaking.
Exactly. And the full collapse, the Big Crunch itself, where everything rushes back together, they estimate that around 34 billion years from now.
How? What's the mechanism? You hear about dark energy pushing everything apart.
Right. And that's the key. The thinking here is that the nature of dark energy might change, or its effect might weaken. The study likens it to stretching a rubber band. It goes out, reaches its limit, and then snaps back, recoils.
The whole universe snapping back. It's hard to comprehend. Everything. Galaxies, stars, planets.
Everything. Drawn back inwards, maybe even time itself behaving differently, all collapsing into that one point.
Okay. Mind-bending stuff. But let's bring it down to Earth for a second. What does this cosmic timescale mean for us, for our planet? I mean, you mentioned their rubber band snap idea. Are scientists all agreed on that specific mechanism? Is there debate?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely a developing area. The precise nature of dark energy, its future behavior, that's still very much under investigation. There are other models too. But here's the thing. Even if the Big Crunch doesn't happen exactly like that, or even if it takes longer, Earth's own clock is ticking much faster.
Faster how?
Well, within that first 7 billion years, so long before the universe even starts to contract, according to this study, our own sun has plans.
Oh, right. The red giant phase.
Exactly. It'll swell up massively, hugely. And it's very likely it will just engulf Earth entirely.
So we get vaporized by the sun billions of years before the universe potentially collapses anyway.
Pretty much, yes. So, humanity, if we're still around, would need to have found a new home long, long before the Big Crunch becomes an issue. Interstellar travel becomes less sci-fi, more necessity.
Okay. That puts things in perspective. 7 billion years for the sun, maybe 34 billion for the universe. But now, let's shift gears completely, because this next part is where it gets really interesting, I think. We're moving from cosmology to theology almost, and to Sir Isaac Newton.
The father of modern physics, calculus, gravity.
The very same. But he wasn't just a scientist, he was also deeply, deeply religious. A theologian.
That side of Newton is often overlooked, isn't it?
Totally. And get this. Newton came up with his own doomsday timeline, one that's, well, a lot closer than billions of years. He wrote it down, a handwritten note found among his papers from 1704.
And the date he predicted for the end of the world as we know it?
2060.
2060. That's
We're like in 40 years.
Less than 40 years. So where did he get that date from? Not from telescopes, presumably. No, definitely not telescopes. His calculation was based entirely on his interpretation of biblical prophecy, specifically the book of Daniel in the Old Testament and the book of Revelation in the New Testament.
Okay. How did he get 2060 from those?
It's complex, but he focused on passages mentioning periods like a time, times, and half a time, or 1,260 days. He interpreted these symbolic days as years, using something called the day-year principle, which was common in prophetic interpretation.
A day equals a year?
Yeah. And he needed a starting point. He chose 800 A.D.
Why 800 A.D.?
That's the year Charlemagne was crowned Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. Newton saw this as a key event, sort of the beginning of an era he thought the prophecies were describing.
So 800 A.D. plus 1,260 years gets you to 2060.
Wow, that was his calculation, yeah.
And there's this detail that he wrote about it under a pseudonym.
That's right, Jehovah Sanctus Unus, which translates to one true God.
So he clearly took this very seriously. Did he think it was like fire and brimstone, end of the world?
Not necessarily in the way pop culture depicts it. He seemed to believe 2060 would mark the end of the current corrupt age and the beginning of a new era, a sort of reset, leading to the establishment of the kingdom of God on earth.
A transformation, not just destruction. It's just wild thinking about Newton, the gravity guy, spending time on this. It's like two different brains.
It really shows the breadth of his interests and the worldview of his time. Science and religion weren't seen as quite so separate. But it's also really important to add context here. Newton himself actually cautioned against setting exact dates.
He predicted 2060 but said don't set dates.
Kind of, yeah. He wrote that he wasn't predicting the exact time. His aim was more to push back against others who are constantly making wild, date-specific claims that he felt were bringing the interpretation of prophecy into disrepute.
Trying to stop the sensationalism.
Exactly. He actually wrote, and this is a direct quote, "It may end later, but I see no reason for its ending sooner." He was setting a sort of minimum time frame based on his reading.
Okay, that's crucial. No reason for its ending sooner. Not, it will end then.
Precisely. And he even mentioned the biblical idea that, ultimately no one knows the day or the hour.
So why does 2060 stick? If you put all those caveats on it, is it just because it's Newton?
I think that's a huge part of it. His sheer scientific authority gives weight to everything he touched, even his theological speculations. And let's be honest, a specific date, even a tentative one, is always more compelling, more headline-grabbing than sometime after this, maybe. It captures the imagination.
It really does. So let's step back and try to connect these dots if we can. We've got the Big Crunch based on cosmological data, billions of years out.
Right, scientific observation, modeling.
And we've got Newton's 2060 based on biblical interpretation, theological reasoning, just decades away.
Completely different methods, different time scales, different worldviews driving them.
Yeah, incredibly different. But is there anything they share? Any common ground at all?
Well, I think despite all the differences, they both serve as these stark reminders, don't they? Reminders of the fragile nature of existence, whether it's cosmic forces or, in Newton's view, a divine plan.
Both point to an end, however different.
Exactly. And they reflect fundamentally human preoccupations. The scientists are driven by trying to understand the universe's physical laws and its ultimate fate through observation. Newton, coming from his time in his deep faith, was grappling with questions of meaning, divine purpose, and history's trajectory through the lens of Scripture.
So one is about the how on a cosmic scale, the other more about the why or when on a human historical scale.
You could sort of frame it like that, yeah. The scientific view looks outwards at the physics. Newton's view looks inwards at meaning and perhaps destiny.
Okay, so bringing it back to us listening now. The Big Crunch is billions of years away, probably not something keeping us up at night.
Not directly, no.
And even Earth getting swallowed by the sun is 7 billion years out.
Yeah.
Still comfortably distant.
Right, those are timescales that dwarf human history.
But Newton's 2060. That's within the lifetime of many people listening. How should we think about that, especially given Newton's own caveats?
Well, it's definitely going to generate discussion as we get closer, isn't it? Regardless of whether you give any credence to the prophetic interpretation itself, the fact that Newton calculated it guarantees it'll be talked about.
Yeah, you can see the headlines already.
For sure. And maybe its value isn't in its accuracy as a prediction, but more as a prompt for reflection on, where we are as humanity, our place in the grand scheme of things, whatever you believe that scheme to be.
It makes you think about immediate issues too, doesn't it? If we can contemplate these vast cosmic ends, or even a reset date, like 2060, what does that say about our ability, or maybe our responsibility, to deal with the challenges right in front of us? Climate change, pandemics, societal divisions, things happening now.
That's a really important connection to make. These far-off endpoints, scientific or otherwise, can feel abstract. But they do force you to value the present, perhaps. And they highlight our capacity for foresight, for planning, or for ignoring warnings.
So we've journeyed from the potential big crunch, a cosmic timescale event way down the line,
Billions of years.
to Sir Isaac Newton's much, much closer interpretation pointing to 2060.
Driven by very different motivations and methods.
It leaves you with a lot to think about. Here's a final thought for you, our listeners. How might thinking about these huge, almost unimaginable endpoints, whether it's the universe collapsing or a prophetic date, how might that change the way you look at the urgent challenges and also the opportunities that are right here, right now, in your own lifetime?
Does it make the present seem more precious?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe more precarious?
Something to definitely mull over. It certainly makes you think.
What evidence supports the theory of the Big Crunch? And how reliable are these predictions? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.